Good morning, dear ones, and a very happy Friday to you. We've made it through the week, yes we have, and I hope you've got something nice and loving planned for yourselves this weekend, bearing in mind, of course, that you are deserving of everything and all the good that the universe has to offer you. So today we are doing number 9, the Law of Relativity. This law suggests that we are inclined to compare things in our world, but in reality, everything is neutral. Relativism exists in all things, and in the end, meaning comes down to our perspective and perception. Applying this law can help us understand the tougher parts of our lives with greater compassion. For example, if we're feeling ungrateful for our living situation, it could be because we're comparing our arrangements with someone else's. Instead, we'd be better off appreciating what we have without needing to compare it to anybody else. Competition, they say, is healthy. And of course, we understand the survival of the fittest story. And a lot of people are now using this, you don't have to run faster than the lion or the saber-toothed tiger, you just have to run faster than the slowest person. And yes, we do understand that competition is healthy in certain aspects, but the comparison of ourselves with other people very often leads to criticism. And no matter what you look at, criticism is not good for you. So when we look at the law of relativity, this law states that each person will receive a series of problems or tests of initiation for the purpose of strengthening the light within. We must consider each of these tests to be a challenge and remain connected to our hearts when proceeding to solve the problems. This law also teaches us to compare our problems to others' problems and put everything into its proper perspective. No matter how bad we perceive our situation to be, there is always someone who is in a worse position. It is all relative. We understand that all we can identify with are our own experiences, our own understanding of a situation, our own understanding of a person or a place or a thing. However, just because we understand something to be defined as we do does not mean that it is so for anyone else. You can have 50 people in a movie theater experiencing exactly the same movie at the same time, but each and every one of those people will relate to different parts of the movie, different things will resonate for them or be important to them. Some will be fixated on the relationship played out in the movie, while others will not attach any importance to this relationship and will not identify with the main character as you may. Your experiences are relative to yourself, and you may, of course, share them with others, perhaps to enhance each party's personal experience. But that thought or emotion is relative and relevant only to you, because it meets you where you are at, what you're experiencing in your life at that particular moment, and how you have been raised, what you have been taught, and what is most important to you. So when we look at this in detail, and of course we understand that Einstein's law of relativity is also, we spoke about being one with the divine, and everything above so is below. Everything in the spiritual world and the scientific world is exactly the same. And when we look at the law of relativity, it is all about looking at the world through our own glasses. Okay, we can only make any opinions, form any opinions with anything when we look through our own eyes. Our perspective limits us very often, and it comes back to having blinkers on and only seeing what we see from the point of view of our upbringing, of our previous experiences. Even Lord Buddha said, All we are is a sum of our experiences, what we think we become. When we look at our past, it is always subjective. When we look at the memories we have, if you have a chance to speak to somebody like a grandmother or your mother about certain things that, or father, that certain things that happened in your childhood, you will most probably find, or even a sibling, you will most probably find that their experience of the same situation was completely different to yours. They had different expectations. They saw things with a different set of glasses on. And when we understand that everybody's perception is different, we can start respecting and revering the life around us. Very often we are so caught up in our own experience of everything, and perhaps because we're feeling very sorry for ourselves, and perhaps because we're feeling stressed out, or perhaps with COVID we're feeling lonely and disconnected from the rest of the world. Perhaps those things that we normally would be doing, we are not doing, and those are the things that would maybe make us capable or more capable of relating to other people, or maybe capable of dealing with the things that life throws at you. And now without those things, without those hitches, now all of those, or those crutches, now all of those things, our perspective is that the world is out to get me, nobody loves me, nobody cares, I'm going to just eat worms. And if we have that perspective, of course, we understand already what we think about, we bring about what we believe is true for ourselves. So when you are feeling in that particular space, when you're down in the well of despair and you can't claw your way out, you're obviously going to understand everything from that perspective. So when you look at the world, you'll be looking at it from the bottom of a well and thinking, where is the light? Am I ever going to be able to get out of this? Dear one, know that the world is not the perception that you have, although that's how we feel, and our perspective is always what we can judge on. But when we start changing our perspective, when we start looking at ourselves through the eyes of love, and we have a little bit more of a rose-tinted tint, when we're looking at life with a little bit more love, you will honestly see so much more love around you. When you change the perspective and the perception and perspective that you see the world in, you will find different colors. You will find that the world is actually not as bad as what you think. Yes, of course, there's still horrible people out there. Of course, we still have serial killers at around the world that are still underneath the radar. We've got so many different things that we can focus on if we really want to, with regards to the negativity in the world. Yes, of course, by all means, go and do that. But do you think you're going to be any happier? No. And has it worked for you before? Absolutely not. So if you're wanting to change your perspective, if you're wanting to look down at the world from the crest of the wave instead of up at the world from the bottom of the well, that can only change from you. And everything is relative to you. It's how I feel. I this, I that. Be the change you want to see in the world. It is about I, of course, but it is where the change starts. It all begins with I. I love me. Therefore, I put myself in situations that are loving and caring. I love me. Therefore, I get up early in the morning so that I don't rush to work. I love me. Therefore, I put loving and caring food inside my body. I love me. Therefore, I get out and I walk a little bit so that I have a bit of movement, because otherwise I'm just going to be moving from the office to the couch because everybody's working from home. So we create the world around us based on the perspective we have. What is your perspective? How are you looking at the world and yourself? Are you looking at it through sunglasses of love? Or are you just focused on how the world is just out to get you and nothing's ever going to go right, and I'm just going to go and sit in the corner and eat worms because nobody cares and nobody loves me. Start with yourself. Love yourself. And please don't eat any worms. They're not very healthy for you. It's Friday, folks. Have a wonderful weekend. Remember to give yourself at least 10 minutes of self-love a day. And if you continue that particular practice for 40 days, you can then start tacking on another good practice that is self-loving and caring onto that practice for another 40 days. And that is how change is made. It all starts with I. Remember Michael Jackson's song? I'm talking to the man in the mirror. Very, very false there, but anyway, you get my point. Got to have something to laugh about on a Friday. Have a great weekend. Remember, 5 Reiki principles, 4 agreements. Love yourself and enjoy your weekend.